Hello everyone, Curtis here again, and in this video I'm going to tell you how to surrender negativity that is within your mind using calibration as an assistant tool. And what this is going to do is this is going to potentially raise your level of consciousness, and it's also going to solve problems in your life. It's actually quite amazing. Something I've realized lately is that it seems like every problem in my life is actually caused by that which is held within me, the negativity which is held within me. And it seems to be true that if you surrender all the negativity that is within you, there will actually be no such thing as a problem in your life. And my calibration has consistently told me that that's true. And that's just something I've discovered in the last few days is that problems are uh, they're only experienced as problems if it's a reflection of the negativity that is within you. So this is going to be a method for getting rid of negativity that is held within you. So all you're going to do, it's very simple. Step one, you identify a negative emotion or negative attachment within you that is within the highest good for you to surrender next. And you use calibration to identify it. And basically use calibration because you want to know what you should target immediately now. There's all sorts of negativity within you if you're at a normal level of consciousness, like in the 200s, 300s. There's many areas of negativity in your life, but some of them would be the best ones for you to surrender now, and calibration can tell you which ones to target first. So you're going to identify negativity, and then you're going to surrender it using the letting go method and some stuff I'll tell you about. And then you're going to confirm with calibration as you're surrendering it that you're on the right track and that you're doing it right. And finally, if you do it correctly, you'll typically, I will, every time I do it, I have a revelation at the end of it. And I'll be like, oh, something changes within me. And I'll confirm with calibration that the negativity is fully surrendered. So first of all, for calibration, I'll be using the O-ring method. Now, typically, they teach the O-ring as you close your fingers like this in each other and pull them apart. But what I do lately is I close the fingers on one hand and I just push it with my thumb. And you can see it as I say truth, it's strong. As I say falsehood, it's weak and the fingers break. And that's not just me doing it for the video. That's actually what happens. Is I say truth, it's very strong together. I say falsehood, they just come right apart. And I changed to the thumb method because it requires less pressure on the fingers. Because I was doing so many calibrations that my fingers would get sore and tired. So I found out that is much less pressure on the fingers, and it only uses the fingers of one hand at a time. So you can do twice as many calibrations before they get tired. But anyways, all you do to surrender negativity is first you identify it. You look at the bottom half of the map of consciousness, and first you test if you should go about this. You say, in the name of the highest good, I should surrender a negative emotion now, and test that. Typically, I'll always get a yes unless I'm in like the wrong mood or the wrong atmosphere or the wrong setting or just my intention is off or something. But usually, what I do is I'll lay down on my bed while I'm alone, and I will, or while I'm undisturbed, and I'll test. I should surrender negativity now, and it'll usually test strong. And then you either memorize the bottom half of the map of consciousness, or you look at it and you say, okay, the negative emotion that I should surrender at this time is, and then you test with your muscle test. It's shame, it's guilt, it's apathy. You just keep testing until you get, oh, it's grief, or oh, it's fear, or whatever. And then what you do is you ask, do I need to know anything about this emotion before I surrender it? Now you do need to know the context in which it is, but you can ask questions about it with muscle tests. You can say like this grief is about money, or this grief is about my friends, or this grief is about my body, or this grief is about my parents, or you keep testing until you find what it's about. And just ask any questions you need to ask. And also, what I do is I pray. I usually open up my arms like this, only wider, but you can't see on the video. I open up my arms like this while I'm sitting on the bed in sort of a meditation pose, and I'll say, Dear Lord, please reveal to me the area of my life in which this grief or whatever it um, is affecting me. Please reveal to me all of the information I need to know in order to surrender it. And typically, the knowledge about what it is will just come to me, and I'll realize, oh, I'm in a state of grief over, my inability to earn the amount of money that I want to earn, or something like that. Or I'm in a state of apathy about, something to do with my parents, or, whatever. There's all sorts of stuff. It can be any part of your life. So once the information comes to you, you test, you keep testing, you say, okay, I know enough about this in order to surrender it. And if a test is false, you have to keep asking God for guidance and information about it. You can also keep testing questions like, oh, this grief is about, money. Okay, it's about money, but what about money? Oh, this grief is about, oh, that one time I got fired and I felt like I was mistreated by my boss. Oh, that's it, And then you ask, I need to know more about this before I surrender it. And if it tests false, you can ask, okay, I know enough in order to surrender it, and it'll test true. And once you know the context in which the grief is, what I do is I use the 3-question letting go method. I think it was developed as part of the Sedona method. And you say, could I let this go? Would I let this go? And would I be willing to do it now? So could I let this go? Would I let this go? And when? And the answer you're going for with when is now. And interestingly, I'll use the muscle test again on the could, would, and when. And on the could, I'll say, okay, I could let this go. Oh, it tested as false. So, okay, some part of me believes that it's impossible for me to let this go. Or maybe the could will test as true, and then I'll say, I would let this go, and it'll test as false. And I'll say, okay, if the could is true, but the would is false, that means I know I could let it go, but I haven't been willing to let it go yet. And then the now, the when would you let it go? It's just a matter of being willing and able to surrender it now, I guess. Anyways, I asked, could I let it go? Would I let it go? And now, or when now, And I test all of those with muscle testing. And if you have a negative emotion in you, one of those has to be testing as false, because otherwise you would have let it go by now. So you just contemplate what you do when you find one that says it's false. So it'll say like, oh, I couldn't let it go. Well, then typically what I do is I pray, and I typically open my hands like I pray like this, or I open my hands like this and ask God for assistance, and I just let it go. The intention is to let go of the negative emotion, let go of the blocks. Basically, if I have the belief that I couldn't let this grief go or whatever, then I pray. I typically pray to God for help. I say, God, I do not have the power to let this go, but you have infinite power to assist me, and I ask you for help. I ask you for assistance in giving me the power to let this go now. And typically, prayers such as that will assist you in letting go, and will give you the empowerment to let go. And typically, I'll have a little revelation, like a mini revelation. I'll say, oh, I could let this go. It really could be done. And then I'll test my muscle test, and it'll say, oh, I could let this go. That's true. But now let's go on to the would. Would I let this go? And it's, oh, I wouldn't. I've been holding on to it. I've been holding on to this grief, like milking it for the ego juice, the ego satisfaction. And then I say, okay, would I be willing to let go of the satisfaction of holding on to it? And I just ask questions like that to myself, and I pray a lot. I pray to God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, and then I made a catch-all term that says all of the higher powers that may exist that I do not know of. Whatever is out there, like archangels or whatever is out there, I ask them for assistance. So I pray to all 4 of those things. for assistance, and I also use the letting go. I hold my hands up like this, and I say, I don't say anything. I just intend to let it go, and the intention of letting go of it will bring about the occurrence of letting go of it. And so I do the could I let this go, and I ask for God to assist me on that. I do the would I let this go, and I also ask for God on assistance with that. And I just become willing to let it go and sacrifice that egotism. And then I say, okay, could I do it now? And the now, I don't really know how to explain it, but you're really just opening up your willingness to have a miracle happen at this moment. And you're allowing God to do it. It doesn't come from you, it comes from God. But anyways, that's what I do. This whole time that I'm doing this, you can always ask more questions with the muscle test and just keep pressing against your fingers, if that's your method or whatever your method is. Keep testing. You can ask as many questions as you like as long as you have permission. And I also ask for permission before asking most questions. But anyways, that's the thing that happens. And then when you finally do get a yes on all three of those questions, could I let it go? Would I let it go? And when? And when is now? When you finally get a true on all of those, that's actually when the new revelation occurs. And the revelation will occur, and some new happiness, new truth will appear in your mind, and it will present itself to you seemingly out of nowhere. It's like it emerges from empty space into existence, um, which is interestingly enough the same way that the universe came into existence. It came out of God's power. It emerged from seemingly nothingness into existence. Well, that's exactly how truth emerges within us. And so, yeah, so what you're doing here is you are identifying negativity or a sort of empty place in you where truth doesn't exist yet. And then you are becoming willing to let go of that negativity and let God emerge new truth into you. And He gives you that truth as a free gift, which is quite incredible. And anyways, you just do this over and over, and over time, it will raise your level of consciousness. Typically, if I surrender I call it a negativity. Uh, a negativity. You can call it a negative emotion or whatever. Typically, if I surrender a negativity, either my level of consciousness won't increase, and by the way, I do test my own level before and after typically. Um, if your intention is honest and you have permission, you can do so. I know Dr. Hawkins said, don't test it out of egotism, but he did mention in one of his books that you can test yourself out of honest assessment of where you are spiritually. And typically, lately, I've been having a lot of instances where I let go of negativity, and it doesn't increase my level of consciousness by doing so, but it sets me up for success in the future. So I'm clearing out negativity that is not keeping down my level of consciousness, but is causing a problem somewhere else in my life. And the interesting thing about what I've discovered is that it seems that all problems are caused by negativity within ourselves. Just this morning, I surrendered an instance of shame within myself. And one of the things I learned while testing with my fingers questions about the shame is that one of the things is people were criticizing me, and I was terrified. I was being scared of being criticized by certain people in my life. And then I realized, oh, they're criticizing me because I am ashamed of something. And I was testing this and tested true. The only reason they're criticizing me is because their criticism is being brought about by the shame that is within me. And if I was not ashamed, they would never actually criticize me. Or if they did, it wouldn't even bother me and I would just brush it off. And so the negativity within us actually brings out, strangely enough, it seems to bring out behavior in others. They actually sort of react or are swayed by the emotions within you. either positive or negative. And so as you surrender negativity over time, you can actually solve problems in your life. Like if everyone is criticizing you, it might be because you're ashamed of something. You surrender that shame, suddenly they don't criticize you anymore. And I just surrendered that shame this morning, so I'm gonna wait and see, does this criticism stop? And so far, I've been doing this process, basically this process or a very similar one for a while now. I think it's been a year and a half, maybe. And all it is you identify negativity within yourself using calibration. You use the letting go method and prayer, and ask God for help in letting it go. And then as you're doing that, you test with calibration to get more answers about it and to make sure that you're letting go properly. And when you finally do let go, you'll have a revelation, some new truth and new feeling of happiness will come to you. And then you can test and make sure, okay, I've surrendered it fully. I have to test and make sure because during the letting go process, you might also have miniature revelations that you think, oh, I've let it go, but really you haven't let it go. You've let go of like half of it. Um, and it's getting to the point where I can intuit, I can sort of feel if the negativity still exists within me. Once I ask for the negativity to be brought up so that I can surrender it, I can sort of feel it. It almost feels like a dead emptiness inside of me. And then at the end, when I've fully surrendered it, I can feel like a new aliveness. It's hard to explain, but it's almost like there's some scientific article a while back that said like birds can navigate by feeling electromagnetic fields or something like that. I don't know, but that's what it makes me think of. It's almost like I can feel an electromagnetic field, only it's negativity within me being replaced by positivity and truth. But anyways, I have witnessed many problems in my life be solved by surrendering negativity. And just in the past few days or so, I realized that all problems are brought about by negativity within oneself. And that seems to be why Dr. Hawkins talked about level 600 on the map of consciousness. He says, it's the level of peace. Well, the reason you're at peace at 600 is because that's the level you reach after surrendering every instance of negativity within yourself. And then beyond 600, you surrender every negativity within yourself. You reach peace, and you're at peace because you no longer experience any negative feelings. So of course, if you had no negativity in your life, you would be at peace. And then beyond that, I don't really know what happens beyond that. I think you become more and more positive, um, but I don't really know. Maybe someday I'll get there and let you know. But I'm not there yet. But anyways, yeah, this is the method I've been using. In some of my other videos, I explained along with negative emotions, there are also negative beliefs that are, but they're really not that much different. A belief is not really that much different than a negative emotion. It's just sort of a specific manifestation of a negative emotion. So you might have a belief that's like, nobody can love me, and it's like a grief-oriented belief. But you might be able to get rid of the belief just by surrendering the grief that underlies it. You might not need to actually know exactly what the belief is. If you are willing to surrender the grief and the negativity, and willing to ask God for assistance in surrendering it. Um, so I would say even just surrendering negative emotions, you don't have to go through the whole alphabet calibration process that I discussed in the previous videos. It's kind of tedious. It takes a lot of calibrations to get just a few words out. Um, and also what I've realized is you can just ask God for guidance and he can reveal to you a lot of information. Because all this negativity that you're finding within yourself, it's already in your life. It's just been kind of forgotten and glossed over by your conscious mind. But if you ask God, and what I do is I pray like this with my hands open. If you ask God like that to reveal to you what is within you that needs to be surrendered, He will answer you. And so that's about it. Yeah, I've solved many problems in my life doing this. One of the most recent problems I solved is I had an overeating problem. I've struggled my whole life with being overweight, and it's always made me feel horrible because my body is always, it's never been exactly as fit as I would like it to be. And I worked with another person who uses calibration, a therapist type of dude, and he helped me a while back. He helped me identify some negativity in myself that was contributing to my overeating. And then after he helped me, I helped myself later with this method, and I found some more negativity. And another thing I found is that some problems are very, very deep and layered. And like my overeating problem had like several layers, at least two major layers. Um, and but eventually I surrendered the negativity behind it, and I stopped overeating. I actually stopped gaining weight. I had been gaining like a couple pounds a month for several months because I was eating too much and I couldn't control it. And then I finally surrendered this enormous emotion of guilt that was causing me to overeat. And as soon as I let go of it, it was like a tidal wave of relief within me just appeared, and I almost felt like crying. I was so happy, like crying out of joy. I could feel the relief. I could tell that my problem was finally gone. And now I'm finally working on losing weight, and maybe I'll bring an update about that in a few months or so and see if I'm successful. I'm using spiritual techniques and this technique to help me get the body I want and stuff like that. But that's just one example of problem being solved with this technique. And just because of this technique, I have stopped gaining body fat. That was a while back, and I haven't gained any weight since then. Whereas for the several months before that, I was gaining weight every month. So that's one problem that's been solved. Many other problems have been solved with this. My bipolar disorder was completely cured by doing this process with one of the consciousness calibrating therapists that I was working with. Um, and then my depression was also completely cured by doing this. The interesting thing about those is that I was not even trying to cure those. They just spontaneously disappeared after I cleared out negativity. So it turns out that mental disorders and physical health problems and all sorts of problems in your life can be caused directly. They can be a manifestation of negativity within you. And if you surrender that negativity, it can disappear and your life can literally just change overnight. And I've also witnessed that in my girlfriend's life. Uh, she had been talking about changing jobs, finding a new job for a long time. And at one point, a little while ago, she successfully surrendered some negativity within her, and she didn't even realize it. But because of that surrender of negativity, it actually opened up a new job for her. She changed jobs to a much better job. She didn't even realize it was connected, but I saw it clearly. It's like, oh, she did this, she did this step, surrendered negativity, and I even calibrated, and her level of consciousness increased a little bit when she did that. And I calibrated. I said, "Is this directly connected?" Like, yes. And it turns out the negativity within her is what was keeping her suffering in her previous job that she didn't like. And then when she surrendered it, she instantly got the opportunity to move to a better job. And so, yeah, so surrendering negativity within you seems to be the single most direct, most simple, most powerful, most efficient way of solving problems in your life. And right now, I'm working on solving money problems in my life. My entire life, I've had money problems. Like I've never had sort of the energy or the power necessary in order to make enough money. I make enough to live, but I don't make enough to enjoy life really, or to enjoy life physically. I have plenty of spiritual enjoyment, but I've realized that it seems to be completely caused by negativity within me. And recently I've been working on that, and I'm going to see what happens. I do have faith that I will be successful, and I'll probably give you guys an update if that works out. But anyways, I wish you all the best, and I would love for anyone to tell me your success stories If you can calibrate properly, you can use this. And if you can't calibrate properly, you can still use the 3 question method. The could I let this go? Would I let this go? When? You can also use prayer and asking God for assistance. And even if you can't calibrate, you can ask God to reveal to you what do you need to surrender in your life. So that would work too. Because for many years I didn't even think I could calibrate. And then one day when I was surrendering negativity with the help of a therapist who calibrates, it just suddenly came to me, oh, I can calibrate myself. And that's when I started doing it. So you might need to surrender negativity yourself before you are able to calibrate successfully. And that's what happened to me. But anyways, that's about it for this video. I'll see you guys next time.